And welcome to the Matildas Wrap. I am Glen, Quartermain, Chief Sports Writer for the West Australian. With me is Jackson Barrett, Chief of Staff of Sport for the West Australian, and crossing from Sydney, gun soccer writer for the West Australian, Ben Smith, who has been fortunate enough to be there live to watch this amazing Matildas experience. I'll just open with the fact that 11.15 million viewers watched the game nationally. It was the most watched program since ratings began, and that is in 2001, this current rating system. Kathy Freeman got low 8 millions, but that was in 2000, and we believe that it's going to tip over. It was the national average was 7.13 million viewers on 7 and 7 Plus, and we reckon that's going to tip it over past Kathy when we get the Optus ratings as well. That puts it past the AFL Grand Final, the Melbourne Cup, the Olympics, and all those international sporting events. So absolutely unmistakable. This has been a moment in time that has captured Australia's attention. This has been a moment in time that it has put to the fore women's sport, and not just women's sport, I think sport. It's just been amazing. And look, I'll just open with you, Jackson and Ben. For me, I think for most people, it's going to be, you think about the moment of the World Cup for Australia, and I think it's got to be Sam Kerr's goal in the semi-final.
Yep.
Just a bit of humour from my point of view. I was watching it at a bar at Coventry's in Morley, and I turned to the person I was with and I said, Sam Kerr needs to do something here or this is done. And my phone rang and it was an important work call. I had to go outside the pub and I was standing at the front of Spud's shed talking, and I hear the... Of course she scored while I wasn't there, and Anyway, that's my moment. Ben Smith, I'll just ask you firstly, your moment of the World Cup and where you think the Matildas got it wrong before we talk about how much they got right.
Well, I think, it was, like you said, it's that Kerr moment, isn't it? I think everyone's going to remember that for the rest of their life. It's, I said in my analysis, there's been a few famous runs at Stadium Australia, Kathy Freeman's run in 2000, Sterling Mortlock's run in 2003 in the Rugby World Cup semi-final. Sam Kerr's in that same category now. It was, at 1-0 down, it felt like the Matildas, I think we were all scratching our heads wondering how they were going to work their way back into the contest. And, when Kerr picked up that ball, she looked like the Kerr we're used to seeing. She had that extra spark. She had that, that sudden kind of like change of speed. And you could see Millie Bright, stepping off her. She didn't want to, try and overcommit to a challenge because she knew Kerr would just push the ball past her and then it would be over. If you watch the replay, I didn't even notice it at the time because I was too busy, focusing on Kerr. But Caitlin Forder made a really good run down the left-hand side. It was completely open because Kerr had drawn all three English defenders. And Kerr just said, no, I'm taking this myself. And I'll never forget that roar when it went in for the rest of my life. It was disbelief. It was hysteria. It was ecstasy. She didn't really do that, did she? Like, there were people in the press box just kind of looking at each other going, what did we just happen? Like, what happened? You cannot kick a ball as well as she did. Like it's physically impossible. It's one of the goals of the tournament. There's been some great goals of this tournament. Martin Cox's free kick stands out for Panama as well, but that was right up there. And after she hasn't had the World Cup she envisioned 2 months ago, right? We came into this tournament thinking, okay, this is going to be Sam Kerr's tournament, and then she misses the first 3 games with a calf injury. She comes off the bench against Denmark and looks very rusty. Even against France, off the bench, she didn't really have the impact she wanted. She scored a penalty, but it wasn't. She didn't have the moment. We were waiting for a Sam Kerr moment. Well, we got it last night. It was simply magical, and being in that stadium to witness it, and the sudden explosion from Kerr was brilliant.
I was at HBF Park last night, and that Kerr moment is obviously super, super special. I was actually pretty focused on Caitlin Ford in that play because she'd broken down the left, as you said, Ben, so much space. And I actually said, pass it, pass it, pass it. And then she just hit this absolute worldie. The whole place went nuts. About maybe 30 or 45 seconds later, this poor bloke walks back down towards where we're all sitting and goes, that was right at the end of my piss. So the poor bloke's like, everyone's gone at half time. He's like, I'll beat the rush in the second half. And he's missed one of the all-time greatest Australian sporting moments. I spent all last night watching it on my phone. It was just Reaper. Every time you see it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you can't help but click it again and have another look. The moment of the World Cup for me, partly because just the bizarre setting, was Courtney Vine's penalty. It was about 3 minutes before Western Derby started, so we were obviously stretched pretty thin as far as the sport department goes. It was a decent-sized day for us, and watching Courtney Vine's penalty, we had it in the press box about 30 seconds ahead of the big screen at Optus Stadium. So we saw the penalty go in, and then we could all sort of wait for the roar at Optus Stadium and appreciate that afterwards. So that was a pretty special experience as well. And that was just like 120 agonising minutes. I was filing on that one, Ben. So you just don't know where this story is going to play out, and you sort of as you guys know, you sort of start crafting a match report, and then the game goes deeper and it gets better, and what you've got just isn't going to do it justice. So you tear it up and you go again, and then you've got a line that leads with Australia winning and a line that leads with France winning just in case, and then you end up tearing it all up because none of them, even go close to sort of summing up what happened. So I was sort of in that position where it was just agonising for 120 minutes. I probably wrote hundreds and hundreds of words of copy that got tossed in the figurative bin. So that was an unbelievable experience, and to do it at Optus Stadium, as we saw, like the MCG, footy clubs around the place, sandful grounds, just all the different spots that people were taking that one in, to do it, moments ahead of a football game was remarkable.
I think one of the great things about this World Cup, I think even if you're not a follower of the code, you all know who Sam Kerr is. But I think it's brought other names into the consciousness now. I think Razo's tournament's been wonderful. Ford, Arnold's goalkeeping, and the wherewithal she had to take the penalty, miss it, come off her line and be denied, and then to have the wherewithal to go back and basically go back into goal. I thought these names are now branded in people's memories of World Cup. So, Ben, can we just where do you think? So, if you were to encapsulate it, where do you think it went wrong last night?
I think the Matildas have lived in transitional tournament, right? Like, they have looked at their best when the other team has the ball. They've been very comfortable sitting deep and then looking to hit teams on the counter. And when you've got, Caitlin Ford and Steph Catley down the left, the speed of Hayley Raso down the right, Mary Fowler as well, she's quite quick. That hurts teams. Canada, fell that way. They were lured into the trap of, pushing too high up, and when they lost possession, Australia just hit them on the counter time and time again. Same against Denmark, and France were a bit tougher to break down, but Australia still sat deep and kind of almost goading them to miss-hit a pass or make a mistake, and that was that's something which Tony Gustafsson has really that's been his style of play. And I just think last night they gave, Tony, even his post-game presser, Gustafsson even admitted that, he thought they were too tentative in the first half. I think 22 minutes in, they had a passing stat up on the screen, and it was England had made 132 passes to Australia's 34. And I think when you give players like Kira Walsh and Georgia Stanway that much, time on the ball, they're going to pass you to death. And even if they're not going to progress the ball and cut you open with, through balls and clever passes, they're going to circulate the ball. They're going to play it left. They're going to play it right. It's going to drag Australia from left to right, right to left. It's going to drag them out of shape, and it's going to wear them down. And I think that's, Australia, they didn't make many substitutes throughout the tournament. I think that's been one of the biggest criticisms of Gustafsson, the fact that he hasn't relied on his substitutes despite talking about the need for depth in the build-up to the tournament. And I think they looked a bit tired, especially in that last, 20 minutes last night. I thought Courtney Vine was great off the bench. She really injected a bit of spark into that game. But, bringing on Alex Chidiac, who, was one of the best players in the A-League women last season, I think she played 20 minutes all tournament and looked good in those 20 minutes, but just didn't have an opportunity to influence proceedings. And, it'll go down as a bit of a what if for Australia. I think England were by far the better team last night. Defensive mistakes hurt them. Ellie Carpenter, my heart breaks for her. She looked like she'd seen a ghost in the mix zone post game. She was, like that moment of hesitation will loom large on her mind for a long time, unfortunately. And she's had a good tournament. She's still very young, still one of the world's best right backs. So, she'll rebound from that. But I just think England were just by far the better team last night. They were clinical. They were, a bit classier. They were more composed when it mattered. Defensively, I mean, apart from the Kerr wonder goal and that chance she had off that corner, Australia didn't really look like scoring. And I thought Millie Bright and, Alex Greenwood at the back were fantastic for them.
Ben, keen to get your take on this one, but the decision to start Sam. So it was the story leading into basically, every game, all tournament, except maybe the Nigeria one where she'd been ruled out. The decision to start her, as you say, didn't quite have that sharpness about her coming off the bench in the first two appearances she made. Then maybe feeling it down the stretch. So Gustafsson admitted that the 65 minutes against France was probably more than they'd accounted for. And then as we got deeper, she obviously scored that goal, was about 50, 55 minutes in. And then the two chances, so the one you mentioned that fell to her at the corner, and then the one that sort of grazed her, or she needed it to graze her head, and it made pretty flush contact with the forehead and ballooned over the bar. Just keen to get your take. I mean, you play football as well. That the one that fell to her at the corner felt like one that was a chance on weary legs, and a little bit sharper. She probably takes that half step back, and she can make better contact with it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought she got better as the game went along. Yesterday, I thought first half she was very much on the margins of the game. She was, and that was partly because England had all the ball, they had all the possession. And Australia weren't able to play that transition game that they love to. And, it nullified Sam and it nullified for Matildas. And, yeah, I thought, the whole team came out of a halftime, talk with a bit more energy. There was a bit more, purpose going forward. And I thought, Kerr stepped it up after halftime. And I thought her all-round game in the second half was much better. I thought she really grew into the game. I think those two chances just come down to, to rustiness. She hasn't really played. The season, the English season ended in May, I think it was. She hasn't played really since then. I mean, yesterday was her first 90 minutes since May, for 3 months. So, that's going to have an effect. I mean, the goal we'll be talking about that goal forever. It was, fantastic. And that's just, just a testament to how classy and, talented she is. And, that the headed chance is a tough one because she's trying to head it behind. And yes, the second one, I think it just kind of fell to her too quickly. Like if she'd taken a touch, I think she maybe would have buried it, but it just kind of like set up too quickly and she snatched it a bit. Again, maybe Sam buries that, if she's played the entire tournament. We'll never know, unfortunately. But like I said, I thought she got better as the game went on. But as she said post game, and Tony Gustafsson said post game, she'll be thinking about the misses, not the goal.
And I think she may have already announced herself, but certainly Mary Fowler has announced herself at this World Cup with some exquisite passing, setting up players. Great vision.
Yep. And quick on the ball, so quick feet. I thought maybe early she spent a little bit too much time on the ball and was caught in possession, but she moved into the flow of the game, playing that a little bit more like a number 10 role last night, Ben, and dropping into midfield. I think she's super, super exciting there, and the ability, like you say, the vision and the ability to release Ford and Razzo, who are so dangerous down the right and left, is incredible. And I think we've got to know Mary Fowler a little bit. She's one of the girls that, 7 Plus run a documentary about her. She's been really active on social media. We've learned a little bit about her village in Papua New Guinea. So I think she's one of the girls where her profile's gone through the roof. She's obviously got the distinctive gloves.
Is there going to be a run on glove sales now?
There might be. There might have to be. What do you reckon, Ben?
Well, I actually had gloves in my briefcase last night and forgot to put them on during the game. I was worried about the Sydney winter freezing my fingertips, but I didn't need them in the end. But yeah, she's been phenomenal all tournament. As someone who came in to this tournament, from a personal level, I've always recognised she's a very talented player, but I've wanted to see it in longer stretches. And she's provided that and more. I thought against Ireland in the first game, she wasn't, she looked a bit nervy. Obviously missed the Nigeria game for a concussion, and then I thought she was Matilda's best player last night. I thought she was, one of the best players against Canada. I think I had her as a top player against Denmark too. She was, enormous, and she's still 20, 21 years old, and she's been in this national team for 4 years. Like, she's not the next generation; she's the current generation. She is going to be the star of this team for the next 10 years. She is, just like you say, the way she starts high and then can drop deep to receive the ball. The way she links play between midfield and attack is really, really promising. It was really important last night. I thought again, she was really good. She was the one that looked most likely to, receive the ball in between lines, shift the ball quickly. She's very good for someone of her age as well. She uses her body really well. Like, she's able to, she's very skillful and can control the ball really well, but she can torts and twist her body like Katrina Gorry in a way where, she's going to put herself between the ball and the defender. And it's, for a young player to, already have that kind of, football IQ is, it's really impressive. And yeah, for me, she's been the breakout star of this tournament.
And it was also that experienced English bodies. They've been around for a long time, and she was able to manoeuvre her way around those bodies. Very impressive.
The size came to play, I think. Even a couple of balls into the box where if Sam didn't get there and didn't have the chance to get a 2-footed jump or a run and jump, they were so much bigger than Ford and Fowler and Rasso. I think that was a factor.
Yeah, Millie Bright, like I said, she is an enormous human being. And, the fact that England's best centre-back, Leah Williamson, didn't even come to the tournament because she was injured. And the fact they just have Millie Bright, who can, step in and lead them. She's been fantastic. She's been another one who's grown into the tournament. And I thought, Jess Carter and Alex Greenwood on either side of her were really good. They were very physical, England. And I don't think they roughed up Australia to the point where Australia were daunted, but they were winning a lot of 50-50 balls, especially, in the defensive third. They're a very well-coached team. They're very disciplined defensively. There weren't too many holes for Australia to exploit going forward. And, I think that's testament to them, and also in midfield as well. Georgia Stanway and Kira Walsh, they put their bodies about as well. And, Gustafsson said post-game, he said that the midfield battle was a bit of a war. And, Katrina Gorry's never been one to shirk a tackle. And she copped her fair share of, knocks and bruises last night. And, it was a really fascinating battle.
Ben, what's next for the Matildas? So obviously a third-place playoff on Saturday afternoon. You'd probably expect that, given the girls off the bench have had significantly less minutes than any other side, and that Sweden have the 24 hours recovery, we'll probably see a couple of changes. Beyond that, though, you mentioned Mary Fowler's 20, Kyra Cooney-Cross is 21, Ellie Carpenter isn't much older. This group's going to pretty well stick together, right? I mean, you run your eye over, as far as retirements go, maybe like a Claire Polkinghorne, but the rest are right in the mix for this Paris Olympics, and you feel like they're in a pretty good position to
Just before Ben answers that, we've got the great opportunity later this year because the Matildas will be playing here in Perth.
Yep. So
a couple of Olympic qualifiers. So get along, everyone, please.
Yeah. Leah, like you said as well, like Cooney Cross is, she's not the finished product just yet, but the way that, as the tournament has progressed, she's wanted to try and take the game on a bit more. She's definitely developing as a player. It's a really exciting time. Polkinghorne, who I thought was great last night in terms of just given the context, hasn't started all tournament. Alana Kennedy, obviously, sadly missing out through illness, and I thought Polkinghorne stepped in, didn't miss a beat. I thought she was the better of the two centre-backs. Claire Hunt, who's had a really good tournament, unfortunately got towed up a bit by Alicia Russo and Lauren Hempen. Hey, they're two very good players. So, Hunt will rebound from that and she'll be much better for the experience. But, I think in terms of age demographic, Polkinghorne, maybe she'll push through to Paris next year. But Katrina Gorry was saying post-game that, she's one of the elder statesmen of the group, and this felt like it might have been her last chance at a World Cup. And, she's been brilliant all tournament. I think she's, the most important player, not named Sam Kerr or Caitlin Ford in this Matildas side. hopefully she's still there in 4 years' time. But I mean, she'll definitely be there in Paris. But hopefully she gets another crack.
Who wins it?
I liked the look of England last night. It's going to be a battle of two very contrasting styles. I'll admit I haven't seen a lot of Spain up until the semi-final, but I think England's physicality might do the same sort of job on Spain as it did on us last night.
I agree with that, and having been born there, I've got to go with England, although I am an Aussie, but I do have heritage. Ben, your take?
Yeah, I think I'm going England as well. I was really impressed with what they did last night from a defensive point of view. I think, the way that apparently the English press had been bemoaning the performances a bit of Hemp and Russo in the lead up, and they were both. I thought they were two best players on the pitch yesterday. And England get Lauren James back, who was their match winner earlier in the tournament. Just being able to drop Lauren James into a very strong England team. Ella Toone, I thought was fantastic for them last night as well. So there's going to be a selection headache for the Lionesses, but. Yeah, I watched Spain and Sweden at the Fan Zone in Sydney on Tuesday night, and yeah, I've got to go with England. I think it'll be a really good game, and like Jackson says, a really good contrast of styles.
Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jackson.
Thanks,
thank
Waters.
you, listeners. And Ben, your movements, are you back in Perth or are you hanging around?
Unfortunately, I'm flying back tonight. Unfortunately, I would love to stay and soak up the atmosphere in the lead up to the final. I'd love to be there on Sunday, but unfortunately, I'm flying back tonight. I would just like to, before I head off, I was obviously in the mix zone after the game. For those who aren't aware, mix zone is basically where the players walk through on their way to the dressing rooms. And they have like TV crews and print journalists and radio journalists lined up there, and players stop and you can ask them a question. Not every player stops, but the like Australia's media team and sort out who's going to speak to the media after the game and that sort of thing. And we spoke to Alex Chidiac after the game, and she didn't play much, but she talked about how proud she was of the squad and how well the team had done. And Alex Chidiac is someone who she's spoken a lot about her love of penguins. And of course, the competition's mascot is a penguin named Tazuni. She was talking post game about what she was asking the Matildas media manager. What do we get if we come third? Do we get a bronze medal or do we get like a plush Tazuni? And then she started talking about. The fact how disappointed she was, she actually hadn't bumped into Tazuni, the lifelike mascot, after a game. She accused Tazuni of ghosting her. She said all she wanted was a cup of tea and to celebrate with Tazuni after a win. And it was amid a very bleak, somber moment. It was a much needed kind of touch of lightheartedness from Alex Chidiac.
Where's she from? Which state?
Tazuni.
Yeah. Do you know? Because she needs to get to.
Chizuni's not been very high profile this tournament. I think she's slipped under the radar.
Get to Victoria and go to Phillip Island and go and see the little penguin parade there.
This Tazuni-Chidiac beef could be the story of the World Cup then.
I don't think it's beef. I think Chidiac loves Tazuni. In fact, there was a great story on Optus Sport a while ago about Chidiac meeting Tazuni when the mascot was first announced. Go check it out. It's a wonderful, lovely story. Chidiac is such an engaging personality. It's a shame we didn't see more of her at the tournament on the pitch, but I hope that Tazuni hears Chidiac's message post game and makes some time for her up in Brisbane after the third place game.
Well, thank you, Jackson, and thank you, Ben. And your analysis and news reporting has been of the highest standard during the World Cup. Please, everyone, go to thewest.com.au to read Ben's stuff. You'll be blown away, I'm sure. Safe travels home, Ben.
Thanks, Quarters. Thanks, Jackson.
And thank you, listeners. You've been listening to the Matildas Wrap.